Hey golfers, in this next video I'll be talking about golf hip turn versus shoulder turn. Keep watching. Hi, it's Troy from hittingitsolid.com here. Thanks for watching. So we're talking about golf hip turn versus shoulder turn in the golf swing. So let's start off with the backswing. What does that look like? So for me, and it depends on your flexibility or whether you have any injuries or not. For me in the backswing, I try to get a 45-degree hip turn and a 90-degree shoulder turn, and that'll look something like this. So as I go back, I get 45 degrees of my hips here, and you'll see my shoulders are roughly about that 90 degrees. So as I said, if you can't do that, it's no problem. Work to whatever you can get to. Now, if you can do more, that's great. And I encourage you to swing as long a backswing as you can, providing you can maintain stability in your swing, in particular with your right leg. So if you can get stability in that right leg, and as long as it's not rolling over like this or you're becoming unbalanced, more than happy for you to try and swing and get past 90 degrees. And get an even bigger shoulder turn, because that'll lead to more distance. So it just depends on what you can do. Now, important that not only do you maintain that stability in the right leg in that backswing, let's have a look at it from this angle, but you also need to stay in posture and maintain that spine angle you've created at address. So at address here, you can see as I'm leaned over, I've created that spine angle right through my back. It's important in your backswing that you maintain that spine angle. I don't want to see you standing up taller like this and coming out of your posture like that. So that's not going to help you at all. So important that when you're getting that hip turn and shoulder turn in the backswing, that you maintain that spine angle and also maintain that stability in your right leg. Okay, if you can't get that 45-degree hip turn or the 90-degree shoulder turn in your backswing, like I mentioned before, that's okay. There's a couple of things you can do to try and increase that. If you can't, it's not a problem. The idea is you want that as big a separation between the hip turn and shoulder as possible, as you can possibly do. And that equals coil. So that 45-degree hip turn less the 90-degree shoulder turn is your coil. So if you can only move your hips 30, that's okay, and your shoulders say 70 degrees, that's okay. What I don't want you to do is move them both the equal amount of distance. So we don't want the hips moving 45 and the shoulder only 45. That'll just lead to a lot of loss of power and inconsistency. We want to keep that coil, the difference between hip turn and shoulder turn, as great as possible. So if you're looking for a way that you can increase either hip turn or shoulder turn, here's a couple of things you can do. First one, I've spoken about this before on the channel, don't be afraid to lift up that lead heel. Many players do it, have done it in the past, still many players do it today. As you go back, don't have to lift it up very high, just enough to help you. Actually, I'll show this on face onto the camera, will show it a lot better. Just enough helps loosen up the hip area and enables you to get a better turn when that foot comes off the ground, so don't be afraid to do that. The other thing you can do is set up to the ball a little bit with a closed stance. So from down the line, for a right-hander, just drop this right foot back just a few inches like that. Now you'll be set up aiming a fraction right, so you'll need to allow for that when you're setting up to your target. But what dropping that right foot back does, makes it much easier for your hips to turn, and you'll get a bigger hip turn and also a bigger shoulder turn. So there's a couple of simple things you can do there to really improve that hip turn and shoulder turn. Now, in the backswing, I like to make a very centered turn rather than swaying with your hips too far off the ball, which leads to a lot of problems in the swing. I like to feel like this right hip is going back. So if I'm set up to the ball here, Watch my right hip here as I go back. I like to feel as though it's coming straight back and I'm making a very centered turn. Helps you wind up for better power and a lot more consistency. So from down the line. Now when you do this, your right leg will straighten, but I don't want you to lock it out completely. I just want you to straighten it a little bit, just enough to help you get that nice centered turn. It's different for everyone. I like to sort of straighten it out a little bit there, but never lock it out completely. You definitely don't want to do that. But just having it move backwards, you always want to feel like that right hip for a right-hander in the backswing is moving back. Okay, and that's a great way to make a centered turn in your backswing. Okay, in the downswing, the golf hip turn versus shoulder turn. So in the downswing, this is really for me where it all happens in the golf swing. So in the downswing, the opposite will happen in the backswing. So the hips will rotate even more than the shoulders will, coming through to impact. So as I start my downswing, I've got that 45 and 90. Hips will move first. The arms will lag a little bit behind. As we come down, the hips will open more, shoulders will open up, and we'll come into impact in this position here. Now, how much your hips and your shoulders open will be different for each player, but for most of you, I'd like to see those hips open round about that 45 degrees. Again, depends on your flexibility. And your shoulders could be anywhere from 20, 30 degrees, again, depending on whether you have any shoulder issues or not. So we really want them to be opening up, getting into some sort of position like that. Let's have a look down the line. So they're basically doing the opposite to what they are in the backswing. So where the hips will move first, start to open up, shoulders start to open up, club lagging behind, getting an impact, got those hips nice and open, shoulders a little bit open, all the way through to the finish. Now in the finish position, the hips and the shoulders will be virtually side by side, pointing out to the left of your target for a right hander. So that'll look something like this. They should be all pointing out left of our target like that. So that's a great way to get your hips and shoulders moving in the downswing, which, excuse me, which is a really key move to really get nailed. Now, really important, a lot of people think with opening the hips and the shoulders up too much, the downswing will contribute to an over-the-top golf swing. Now, if you're someone that does have an over-the-top swing, it's really important that you learn how to shallow your golf club. With an over-the-top move in the downswing, a lot of golfers, they know they have to open everything up, and they'll do this. They'll open their shoulders up, open their hips, but they don't shallow the golf club. The golf club will come up high and cut down across the golf ball like that. Now, I've done a number of videos that talk about shallowing, so make sure you check those out, but super important, by opening up those hips and the shoulders in the downswing, that you really take the time to teach yourself to shallow that club like I'm doing here. Shallow the club so you come down on a nice path and through to impact. Now, also super important, as it is in the backswing, that you maintain those tilts, that spine angle you had it set up in the downswing. It's even more important on the downswing than the backswing. So we've got this nice angle formed at setup. We go to the top of our backswing. Now as we go to our downswing, we stay in our posture, we maintain our spine angle, we maintain our tilts, through to impact, follow through, and not until the follow through that we stand up, and we'll come a lot straighter because we've already hit the ball's gone, but we've maintained those tilts in the downswing. And a great way to see what you're doing is do a lot of mirror work or video, see what you look like, and you can really make it changes from there to improve your golf swing. So let's look at some practice drills you can do to really build this into your golf game. Now, before I get into these practice drills, I thought I'd quickly give you another visual just using an alignment stick through my belt loops and a golf club, just to show you the difference in that hip turn versus shoulder turn in the backswing and the downswing. So in our backswing, so we want those hips to go roughly about 45, depending on what you can do. So you'll see the hips have moved 45, and you'll see my shoulders have turned about that 90 degrees there. So you can see that difference in that hip turn versus the shoulder turn. Here's another angle. So we go to the backswing, hips about 45. You can see my shoulders are pointing out this way somewhere. They've done about that 90 degrees. We don't want, in particular, in the backswing as well as the downswing, we don't want those hips and shoulders turning exactly the same amount. So we don't want the backswing to look like this, everything matching up. We want that differential or that coil. So we don't want them turning exactly the same, especially on the downswing. We don't want everything turning together. We want the lower body, those hips moving first. So we don't want this. We don't want everything moving together. We want those hips on the downswing. You see the hips moving. They're opening up a lot more. You see the hips have opened right up and shoulders have opened up too. We always want the hips and shoulders to be opening up in the backswing and that downswing at different ratios. Really important, all right? Let's look at a couple of these practice drills. Okay, here's a couple of really simple exercises you can do anywhere to really get a good feel for getting those hips to move properly and the shoulders. So the first one is basically setting up to a ball. You don't even really need a ball, but set up with a preset open stance. I'm going to drop that lead foot back. And what this enables you to do, as you make a swing, makes it easier to turn through and get those hips really open. So from down towards the camera, just set up hitting small shots or even just practice swings with an open stance. Drop that left foot, that lead foot back. And if you make swings, it's much easier to get your hips rotating and not stalling out in the downswing. So that's something you can really practice to really get those hips moving a lot better. Now another thing you can do, now you've probably seen recently on the PGA Tour a guy called Matt Wolf. He has a little routine he does before he hits the ball where he presets impact. Actually, I might show it from this angle here. He presets his impact position. He opens up his hips like that, gets his shoulders in the right position for impact, and then he goes ahead and makes a swing. This is a great training exercise you can do before you actually hit a shot. Open up your hips, just move them independently of your shoulders and get a feeling for what impact should feel like. So I'm opening up those hips, I'm opening up the shoulders as well. Then I can make a swing and I know what that feeling is that I'm looking to achieve at impact. So it would look like this. So you're really presetting that impact position with your hips and your shoulders. So there's impact, hips open, shoulders open, and we can go back and get into that position there. A couple of two really great exercises you can practice to really nail this into your golf game. Now, super important, I've got a video coming up that talks about weight shift versus hip turn. Now, this is really important because this ties in with this video to help you make a great overall golf swing. So that video is coming up, make sure you watch it. Do you want to know how to make an even better golf swing? Click and watch the video on your screen now. It's going to go into more detail about golf weight shift versus hip turn, which ties in really well with this video to help you make a great overall golf swing. Do you want to know how to play even better golf? Consider subscribing to the channel. And remember, if you have any questions or comments, please let me know. I will get back to you. Thanks for watching. See you next time.